Ukraine is attempting to regroup after Russia launched its largest missile barrage so far this year. 95 missiles over the course of just the past day. Ukraine's military says it was only able to intercept about a third of them, 34. In Kyiv, power and water have now been restored, but boy, it was a tough night.
Yeah, absolutely. We are also watching an event happening in Kyiv right now. It's a burial service. It's being held for a fallen Ukrainian commander who was killed in Bakhmut. CNN's Ivan Watson is there. So, Ivan, what more do we know about this commander?
Right. Well, this young man's name was Dmytro Kotsubailo. He went by the code name Da Vinci, and part of his funeral is taking place here. We've been watching funeral and memorial events in Kyiv for hours now. The church service was actually attended by the Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky, and the top military command were in Kyiv's Maidan, that central square where thousands gathered to pay their respects to this man who was killed this week in the grinding battle of Bakhmut, that small southeastern Ukrainian city where the Russian and Ukrainian militaries are pounding each other day after day for months now for control of that city. Now, this man, Da Vinci, as he's known, last year, Zelensky, the Ukrainian president, gave him the honor, calling him a hero of Ukraine. And he is viewed by many of the people the thousands who've gathered as a national hero, someone who participated in the 2014 protests. The 2014 protests against a pro-Russian president in the Maidan Square that ultimately resulted in the overthrow of that president. He fled to neighboring Russia. So Da Vinci had been a young activist there and then joined a militia that fought against pro-Russian separatists in the Donbass region for years after that, and then has been part of the armed forces fighting against the Russian invasion over the course of the last year. He is the youngest battalion commander in the Ukrainian armed forces. The crowds have been chanting things like heroes never die. And I think this underscores the immense sacrifice that Ukrainian military commanders are paying in this battle, this contest, this deadly contest against the Russian military in Bakhmut. Back to you.
Ivan Watson, live for us there this morning. Ivan, appreciate it. Thank you.
Let's dive deeper in all this now with retired Brigadier General Mark Kimmick. Good to have you on, sir. Let's talk first about this missile barrage overnight. One, it's the scope. It hit across the nation, even killing people all the way in the western part of the country. Seems to be a mix of a couple things. Hypersonic missiles, difficult to impossible to shoot down with Ukrainian air defenses, but also these Iranian Shahad drones, and it seems fired at the same time. Is that by design to overwhelm Ukraine's air defenses?
Sure, absolutely. And it's their version of shock and awe, too. They're trying to make a huge effect on the population and the infrastructure.
And are Ukrainian air defenses, even with the addition of more advanced Western NATO systems, still overwhelmed there by these Russian missiles?
They are. I think until we see the Patriot get onto the ground, they're going to be on their back foot, especially when you send so many at once. It's hard to target all of them, hard to shoot them all down.
Another thing, and this is CNN's reporting, is that Russia is capturing some Western-made, U.S.-supplied, in particular, weapons in this fight so far, including the Javelin anti-tank missile and the Stinger shoulder-fired anti-aircraft missile, sending them to Iran, in effect, as a gift for them to reverse engineer potentially. How significant is that?
Some gift.
Yeah.
It's a boon to Iran. Iran is providing drones to Russia. In return, they're getting systems that they're reverse engineering and propagating throughout the region. They've done this before. Iran got a hold of the old TOW missile. They got a hold of old drones as well. So there's a Middle East regional impact if you now see advanced weapons being developed by Iran.
And have they shown themselves, for instance, with the TOW, the ability to take one, figure it out, and make their own?
Absolutely.
That's alarming. Okay, let's talk about the progress of war then in the East. There's been a lot of talk about a Russian spring offensive. Really hasn't been materialized. U.S. officials have been telling me for some time they just don't have the forces and the manpower to do anything definitive. But we also know Ukrainians want to carry out a counteroffensive in the opposite direction. What is the actual state over here? Does either side have the potential to make ground?
Well, it really depends on what the Ukrainians have been doing over the wintertime. Yes, we've been focusing on Bakhmut, but hopefully they've been resupplying, rearming, retraining. They really have almost an imperative to have a spring offensive.
Right.
They've got to demonstrate to the West that they're making progress. They have to demonstrate to their own people that they're making progress.
All the fighting, all the attention around Bakhmut in these last several weeks, extremely deadly for both sides. I mean, we're talking about some days where thousands are killed in a single 24-hour period. Has it been worth it for the Russians, but also crucially for the Ukrainians to fight so hard, so long, and to give up so much there?
I don't think so. I mean, retrospectively, this reminds me of World War I, these great battles where inches were gained and thousands were lost.
Yeah, this is the area we're talking about here.
Yep.
So what happens now in the coming weeks? You say that Ukraine they have to make a push this way just to not be on their back foot, in effect. Do they make progress when they make that push?
Well, first of all, I don't think that's where they're going to do it. If I was advising them, I would be looking at a different area. There's down here by Kherson going all the way up to Berdyansk. I think what they really want to try to do is unhinge the Russian offensive. Imagine if they were able to get all the way to Berdyansk.
Yeah.
They would essentially put all of Crimea at risk, particularly if the Americans put in ATACMS.
Right.
And then the Russians are going to have to think about this land bridge that has been so important to them. How will they react?
I mean, that's been one of the principal goals of the whole Russian invasion is to join Russian-controlled areas here with Crimea in the south. Great point, General Kimmett. Always good to have your expertise.
Thank you.
President Zelensky has been clear that this new tactic, no matter what it is still not going to make people stand down. I want you to take a listen to what he said about it.
We have already shown what Ukraine is capable of, and no matter how treacherous Russia's actions are, our state and people will not be in chains. Neither missiles nor Russia's atrocities will help them.
Now, Russia's defense ministry says this attack is retaliation for an alleged cross-border attack in Berdyansk that took place a few days ago. Ukraine has denied involvement in this attack, but I think it shows you it's a reflection of the Kremlin's thinking when retaliation looks like attacking civilian areas.
And Salma, yesterday when you joined us, you mentioned how the Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant had been knocked off the power grid for the 6th time, I think, in this conflict, obviously raising a lot of alarm among nuclear watchers. What more do we know about the safety of the plant at the moment?
I think what really shook me is the quote from the head of the International Atomic Energy Agency. He said, "One day our luck will run out." And that is the concern, right? We're talking about a nuclear power plant right on the front lines that is Russian occupied, but run by Ukrainian engineers and Ukrainian staff that has over and over again been impacted by these massive missile attacks, by these massive strikes coming from Moscow. The IAEA is saying, look, we have to do something about this. This is dangerous. This is something that is on the brink, that is absolutely unacceptable. And there's been several visits, of course, by the nuclear watchdog, but that has yet to find a resolution to this. So you're still looking at Europe's largest nuclear power plant, that's what the Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant is, caught in the crossfire with no solution as to how that plant can be stabilized and people can be certain that it doesn't become something worse and something
It's running
bigger.
on emergency power, isn't it? So it's not completely out.
Not completely out, it goes into blackout mode. So it's cut from the power grid, it goes into blackout mode, but you're still talking about a nuclear power plant, right? There are serious concerns when you're talking about supplying power to a nuclear power plant and that supply not being stable, not being reliable.
Salma, thank you so much.